Good morning, everybody. It is 8:40 right now, and time to get to the bottom line, Jackie.
Boom.
And that's why Michael Jankins is joining us in studio right now, the bankruptcy attorney, to talk a little bit about how you can save your home in a certain situation, Jackie.
Absolutely. If you're in some financial hurt, a lot of times you think about the assets that you have and losing them because they can be taken away, correct? Or what can you do to prevent that from happening when it comes to something like our home?
Well, oftentimes with people having bad financial problems, they get into a problem affording to pay their home, and they start missing payments.
Right.
And it's not like, you know, you can just take a vacation on your payments and then go, okay,
What is usually the amount of time, let's be real honest here, about how many months you can miss before things really start getting serious?
Well, things start getting serious with most of the mortgage companies. If you've missed a full 3 payments.
3, okay.
At least in our experience, if you're like just 2 payments down and under, they'll keep taking your payment, and you just keep being 2 under.
Keep going.
But once you hit that 3rd one, then they go, well, we're not taking your money. We have to have all of them or none of them.
Really? Okay, so that's the threshold then.
That seems to be for most of the mortgage companies the trigger point, and when they kind of stop working with you unofficially. And so once you get to the point where they're not taking your payments anymore, you're kind of off the track, because now you're trying to scramble, how am I going to get my mortgage straightened out? And each month goes by and you're not paying. And so eventually they're going to file a foreclosure lawsuit. And when they do, it's pretty serious, because you're in severe danger of losing the home that you live in.
Because they want their money.
Exactly.
So let's talk about this. Let's say we've gotten to that point where you have been served a foreclosure lawsuit. What do we do?
Well, the first thing you ought to do, and there's a big letters on the lawsuit, get a lawyer, protect your interests. And so when you're doing that, you know, some people just blow it off, go, you know.
What kind of lawyer are we talking about? There's so many different kinds of lawyers out there. A basic lawyer, or are we calling you?
A lawyer that deals with foreclosures, and ideally somebody that does Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
Okay.
In other words, call Michael Jenkins.
Certainly.
That's the answer.
That's recommended.
That's the answer. Okay.
But you need to slow the train up. If something's filed, the process takes much longer, and it gives you time to try to figure out other options. And one of the options people will do, and it's a good option at least to try, is this loan modification process that most of the mortgage companies have. But if you get involved in that, you still need a lawyer to at least file something in the foreclosure and slow it up. Sometimes a mortgage company will tell the lawyer, put this thing on the back burner while we're going through the loan modification process, and so it just sits. Well, if things aren't going to work out with the loan modification, well, if you didn't get a lawyer, you're never going to know what's going on with that foreclosure, and when it kicks back into gear, you're not going to know before it's too late that the party's over.
So the lawyer keeps an eye on what the process is.
The lawyer.
They don't deal with you on a personal basis. You need to have that lawyer to have that communication going.
Well, if you don't file anything in the court, no one will be having any communication with the person who's being foreclosed on. Okay. And tell him the party's over when it's over.
Got it. Because I want to go back to something that you mentioned, because a lot of times when you get in over your head when it comes to bills, payments, things like that, or you're like our household, when you get mail, it kind of goes onto a pile on the table. If you get served this, don't just throw it on that pile and let it stack up and sit there. How quickly should we be responding to something like that?
Well, it tells you you've got 20 days to have a response filed, and there's a little bit of buffer time in that too from the date they bring you those papers. So you ought to adhere to trying to get it done within 20 days and not just throw it on the pile.
Right.
And if you're in the loan modification process, the people you're dealing with are very assuring to the person, oh, we're going to work with you, and you don't have to worry about that right now. And so they don't call a lawyer. Well, you need to, because a lot of times the loan modification doesn't happen. And
now, when you say loan modification, what kind of modification are we talking about?
Well, typically what occurs is they take all the missed payments and the foreclosure fees, and they just add it to the back of the loan and let you just start making payments again. And
the normal payments you would normally be making?
The normal payments, they'll just add it to the end of the loan, and sometimes they'll tweak the interest rate a bit and maybe drop a point and a half off the interest. And they sometimes even extend the loan. So it
to make your payments a little more affordable for you.
Yes.
Okay.
And but these loan modifications aren't given out all that often in comparison to the thousands of people that are trying to get them. So you just can't count on that. And for gosh sakes, you don't wait until they schedule a sheriff's sale and pick up the phone to call the attorney in a panic. My house is up for sale in 2 weeks. Can you help me?
Is that too late?
For most of the attorneys that'll do it, yeah.
Okay.
For me, there's still a little bit of time. Day before, they can forget about it, but yeah, 2 weeks.
There might be some wiggle room.
Yeah,
So
but it is doable.
it's doable.
Okay, it's doable. Okay.
So, but you shouldn't wait till that long. Okay.
Is there a fear of if I already can't pay my mortgage, how am I going to pay an attorney to help me in this situation? Or you shouldn't even be thinking that way?
Well, you're not making your mortgage payments each month that's going on. So if you're working and you're not making your mortgage payments, again, this is an indication whether you're going to even be able to afford to be in a Chapter 13 or afford your home at all. You should have been saving some money along the way because you've not made payments for 6, 7, 8 months.
Right.
And presumably, if you're trying to save your home, you're back to working now.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Because it normally happens because someone lost a job, somebody became ill and hasn't worked for a while, now they're back to work. So then things are back up on their feet, and it's just a matter of can we piece it back together again.
Right.
Okay.
So you go to the attorney, such as myself, and you file Chapter 13 bankruptcy or go, hey, can I file? Well, Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a plan, it's a special bankruptcy, and it allows you to pay your debts through the court on an organized basis. And one of those debts can primarily be the mess that you've created with your mortgage company. And so the debt that you could pay back through this payment plan is what you missed. All the payments, the foreclosure fees, the lawyer fees that the mortgage company paid their lawyer.
That can all be part of it.
It can all be part of it.
Okay.
So that becomes like an isolated debt in and of its own. So that one amount is a debt that can get paid back along with other stuff a person might have, or sometimes that's the only reason they're in Chapter 13. They don't really have very much other debt, a couple medical bills, maybe one small credit card, and then this chunk that they owe the mortgage company. So this is a vehicle that you can get it straightened out. And so the maximum period you can be in it is 5 years or 60 months. And that's a really long time to be paying back stuff you didn't have on your mortgage. We try to encourage people when the main focus is paying back the mortgage to do it in less than 5 years. That's the maximum.
So you're not going to be penalized if you pay it early?
No, not at all. So we can set them up for 36 months, 48 months, because a lot of life happens in 5 years, and unfortunately too many other things sometimes derail if you have to take the whole 5 years, and it's not really a strong selling point that it's going to take you 5 years to pay everything back. So sometimes it's necessary. I've had cases, rare cases, but I have had some where they actually had to take all 5 years and actually made it. So,
but this is not the only payment that you have to make that month to month. You have your normal payment and this one. Then, right.
So once you file, to begin with, you got to begin making your mortgage payments again.
Right.
The first day that comes due after you file your Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So if we filed your case on September 21st, you would start making your mortgage payment on October 1st. And then you also have to make your payment to the bankruptcy court for your Chapter 13 payment 30 days after the case was filed. So that's when those begin. So you have to start making these payments, and you have to afford to be able to do them. And that's an important factor that we look into to determine if this is the right thing for you.
So I think a basic game plan would be make your regular payment at the first of the month and make your secondary payment maybe the 15th.
Well, except you can't really choose that. You have to pay your secondary payment 30 days from the date your case is filed.
Got it. Okay.
There is wiggle room in there. I mean, the most important thing is that the payment gets made each month. I mean, so they don't strictly adhere to that, but that is the technical date, 30 days after the date of filing.
And the mortgage company has to take this payment.
Yeah, so when you're in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, it's not like loan modifications. The mortgage company doesn't have a choice. They have to accept the payments. And they don't really want your home, so they're not going to go, well, we're just not going to file any paperwork in the case so that way we don't get any money. They don't really want the house. So if a Chapter 13 can work, they're more than happy to go along with this process, accept the payments, and when you start making your regular mortgage payments again, even though you were in foreclosure, they take them. and they take the court payments. They've got to file paperwork with the bankruptcy court to prove what actually is owed, and they have to lay out all the exact figures from the stuff you missed, all the fees that are getting added in that you got to be paying back.
Right.
So it's all detailed, so they don't just put out a number and you trust them, oh, that must be right.
Right.
They've taken great pains to make them lay it all out in fine detail.
So the mortgage company will be getting 2 revenue streams from your household.
That's correct.
Okay.
If you are paying it in a proper
The way you're supposed to.
Right.
And there was a big thing that we saw on that full screen there. Do not try filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy on your own. You need an expert, and that's why we send them to you, Mike Jankins. So if people need to get in touch with you, learn if filing Chapter 13 is meant for them. How can they reach out to you?
You can give us a call at 255-1855. You can find us on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com, or you can follow us on Facebook.
Okay.
Great advice. Good things to keep in mind in case you're in that situation. This guy can help get you out of it.